What you're about to hear now is just one episode in a bigger series, full of secrets and mystery. If you haven't followed the beginning yet, I advise you to go back to the first parts so you can understand every detail and realize how much more dangerous what's coming is. Are you ready to face what lies beneath the water? In the depths of a dark lake, amid the fog, and on a night history we'll never forget, something appeared, something the human mind cannot comprehend. And now, the world knows nothing. No pictures, no evidence. Only we saw and only we barely survived. We thought the story was over, but we were wrong, because the nightmare hasn't even begun. End of the mystery. Maggie, my angel, I swear I will tear them all apart. I'll slaughter them, scatter their limbs in the North Sea for the mysterious monsters to devour them all. I was panting as I ran after the trail of lines she had left, and the drops of blood that sometimes appeared and sometimes vanished. My thoughts were scattered. Panic paralyzed me. I muttered curses and threats at them, while I didn't even know who they were. I wanted something to pour my anger onto, so I invented imaginary enemies to blame. My pace quickened, my muscles tightened, my breath shortened. I was certain I would find her dead at my feet at any moment, bending over her, placing her head on my knees, her whispering incomprehensible words, then turning her face and dying. Just imagining that scene was enough to shatter whatever remained of my mind. My heart raced, my steps grew heavier, until I suddenly collided with something, and we both fell to the ground. I rose ready to fight, but found that it was her. Maggie, I screamed hysterically, tears streaming to my eyes, and tried to explain what had happened, but she smiled and patted me, speaking gently as if calming a wild horse. Hey, it's nothing. Don't be afraid, my little one. Nothing happened. Then she pointed to her hand, tied with a strip from the shirt she was wearing, and said, I cut my hand on your broken pen. That's all. Come on, calm down. Here, and I am ashamed to admit it, my nerves completely gave way, and I burst into tears like a small child. She looked at me in astonishment, then began to pat my shoulder tenderly. That tenderness only a woman can give and only a man can understand. After all, no matter how old we get, we are still miserable children who have just exited our mother's wombs. She said to me, Come on, fear nothing. Everything will be all right. Cry, cry, you'll feel better. And indeed, after the storm inside me subsided, I began to tell her what I had done during those 2 hours, how I had found the exit, how I had thought she was dead or wounded, and that I loved her like I've never loved anyone in my life. She smiled and said in a practical tone, All of that is lovely, but there's a stranger and more important discovery I made. Come with me, but first. Then she reached for a piece of cloth she had torn from the shirt she was wearing, and laughing lightly said, Blow your nose first. I don't like children who have snot dangling from their noses. I sighed and said, All right, she said, smiling. There! In silence, I followed her down that narrow, strange passage. It gradually widened until I found myself in a large, well-lit stone chamber. Do you know the look of a pharaoh's burial chamber in the Great Pyramid? If you do, you've spared me the trouble of description. If you haven't, that's your problem. I'm still excited and can't talk much. In a corner of the room, there was a blonde girl pinned to the wall. She was by no means English. She was utterly exhausted, her face bearing signs of severe beating. Maggie said proudly, Here is my discovery. Then she leaned toward the girl as if introducing one of us to the other at a social gathering. I present to you Miss Erica Siegfried, the next offering for the Loch Ness Monster. I was dumbfounded, but bit by bit I began to understand. I turned to the bound girl and asked, the ring of her name giving me a certain idea. Are you Danish? Her voice came hoarse, and in broken English she said, I'm Norwegian. I study English literature in Edinburgh. Maggie cried out excitedly, See, blonde and of Scandinavian origin. That fiend kidnapped her, tied her up, and fed her while waiting for the lunch appointment, and she was cut off irately. Can't you see we should postpone that lecture until we free this poor thing? Why didn't you do that? Maggie replied simply, I don't have a tool suitable for unfastening these chains. And my hand is cut, remember? Then she patted my scrawny muscles with delight and said, Now let's see what my hero will do with these restraints. Come on, let's see. My face burned with anger, and I began trying to undo the chains to no avail. All I managed to do was tear the Norwegian woman's wrist more. She ground her teeth and moaned. After 10 minutes, I was utterly finished. My palms were torn and bleeding, so I hung my head in shame, admitting my failure. Maggie said, "Let me try." She took out the ink pen, slipped it into the lock of the chain, and fiddled here and there until, click, the lock ring opened easily. She began to undo the chains around the Norwegian girl's neck and wrists, who glanced at me with a mocking smile and said, "You've got nothing but brute force. I wish it were any good." The girl collapsed to the floor and began to tell her story. She is, as I mentioned earlier, a language student in Edinburgh. She met a young man of Norwegian origin who said he was studying medicine there. He invited her to his house, but after deceiving her, he kidnapped her and brought her to this place. When she came to, she found herself bound like this. He fed her regularly and told her to prepare for the greatest feast befitting the spirits of her ancestors, which would take place in 2 weeks, when her body, the lucky one, would be presented to be eaten by the Loch Ness monster. I asked her, "And was he with you regularly?" She said, "No, I would see him twice a day, coming out of the cellar's darkness. I don't know where he comes from or where he goes." Maggie said with a sneer, "And is that a question? Of course he used to come from the drawing room in your father's mansion and return to it. He must have visited you at dawn and at midnight, when the house was free of people asking awkward questions." I said to Maggie, "Do you think so? And how did he get into the mansion?" She answered me, "He never needed to enter the mansion." "What do you mean?" "I mean he was always there. Believe me, dear Erica, this man had blue eyes, a thick yellow mustache, and long blonde hair. In short, just like the Vikings as we see them in comic books." Erica said, "Indeed, and his name is Unfred Holthrop. He is a servant at our house, and he used to take many leaves to visit Edinburgh, and he must have cast his nets around me and around that wretch Jocelyn." I asked her, puzzled, "And what makes you have a Norwegian servant?" She replied, "So what? He is polite and orderly and speaks very refined English, and my father liked his Scandinavian features very much." So I told her, "The threads are coming together now. This servant used to work for you, and one night he heard a conversation between your father and the late Gold about the Loch Ness monster to whom the Vikings offered sacrifices. Then he sees the horn, the necklace, and that map, and then this servant begins to change. We do not know the circumstances or the causes of his transformation. Is it a crazy pride in his nationality? Are pagan beliefs stirring in his subconscious? Is it a desire for mischief or a craving for distinction? We will never know except from him. The important thing is that the idea fermented in his mind, and so he stole the horn and the necklace and decided to exploit this secret tunnel, which he found by chance, in his dreadful mission. He was smarter than us when he first entered this tunnel, and he did not forget to secure the door behind him. Then he realized that the tunnel led to near the Rock of Sacrifice, so he set up the bars that blocked the tunnel to ensure himself a permanent exit. He began abducting blonde girls who belonged to his race and imprisoning them here. The dramatic strain in his blood made him believe that the Loch Ness monster would devour only the same kind of victims that it had eaten in the past. Scandinavians, the granddaughters of the northern raiders. And when the moment comes, according to his calculations, he ties the girl to the rock, stands at Urquhart Castle, and blows the horn. Then the monster comes out, remembering the ancient call of food to do its work and end the tragedy. "You are reborn, Miss Siegfried." Then the girl gasped, began to tremble, and said through her tears, "He was hideous. He would come to me reciting verses in a language I didn't know, slip strange-tasting foods into my mouth, then perform bizarre prayers and force me to repeat them with him, and if I refused, he would slap me. He was preparing your soul for the great sacrifice." Maggie said nervously, "Now, let's get out of this dreadful tomb. Daddy must be worried sick about us, and we must find that fiend before he realizes anything." Then she looked at the girl tenderly and asked her, "Can you walk with us, my dear?" "No, my feet are completely numb. I haven't moved them in ages." I looked at Maggie, and she winked toward the girl. I approached her and whispered in her ear, Maggie, don't tell me you want me to carry her. Why not? You're our only man, unfortunately. But she's as heavy as a whale. Why don't you believe I'm not Tarzan? Only in lousy films is carrying girls who can't walk easy. There's a huge, broad-shouldered man who knows how to throw punches, pick locks, and wrestle bears, and it's not me. She cut me off sharply. Rifat, carry her. All right. So I hoisted the girl and staggered on, while Maggie followed behind us, guided by the marks she'd made to the meeting point, then by the wavy lines I'd drawn, until we reached the stone window. It wasn't difficult to climb down the rocks with the girl. The waters of Loch Ness were rolling, and in the distance that ominous rock appeared to us. Maggie pointed at it and looked at the girl with a meaning that said, "Do you see what awaited you?" The girl trembled and dug her fingers into my arm. We had won the battle, but does war ever bring peace? What you have just heard is only one chapter of a long novel, a journey that has not ended yet, and secrets that have not all been revealed. In the upcoming parts, you will find the truth becoming more mysterious and the events more thrilling. So be ready, because the story has not spoken its final word yet.